Betska, what an honor to have you on. Where are you calling from today?
I'm calling from the lovely little town of Ladysmith, British Columbia in Canada, and we are famous because Pamela Anderson has her home here. So that's why we're famous. Our town is only 9,000 people, and we live up on a mountain. It's a beautiful place to live. That's where I'm calling from.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
quite amazing. Let's see here. CLI has grown into 200 plus personal global organization with licensed curricula across multiple countries. When you and John started this, was that scale the vision from the beginning, or did it grow beyond what you initially imagined?
everything. I started the company in 1991, basically. And then John joined in 1999 and straightened me out. He had a lot of more strategic ideas than I did. And it just grew organically, I think is the best word to use. Just we put the energy out, we developed our systems, and we keep developing because you have to do that in order to stay fresh. And yeah, it's just been a lot of word of mouth and prayer. That's how we got here.
Well,
I don't know if I answered your question the right way. If not, ask it again.
That's fine. We can move on to the next one. I guess you did answer it in a way. That's funny. So, Mind Kinetics is described as built on cell biology, neuropsychology, and whole brain thinking. That's a very specific scientific foundation for coaching methodology. Where did that framework come from? Was it something you developed from research, from practice, or from your personal experience?
It came from my meditation practice. I'm an extensive meditator, and initially, after our daughter was born, I became bankrupt emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, physically. Thank God, not financially. And so I needed to heal myself. I could barely get out of a chair. My back pain was severe, and my head was fuzzy, and I was a busy executive in an international company. And so I went to my doctor, and she said, "There's nothing wrong with you," after she did multiple tests. I said, "Yes, there is. My back is very sore. Why are you telling me there's nothing wrong with me?" And anyway, make a long story short, I found a lady, actually a friend of mine who's an artist, phoned me up one day and he said, "You have to see this lady. She's going to help you." I said, "Okay." So I went to see her. Her name was Jan Sweeney, and she started me on this journey of the subconscious mind and understanding the subconscious mind and then the superconscious mind, or our God self. And basically, Art, I was going through a spiritual awakening and I needed to get out of my head as a busy executive. I had to get out of my head and into a world where I understood the connection between my mind, body, and spirit. So I did lots of healing work on the subconscious, on the pain that was stuck in my cells, right? Bruce Lipton is an incredible cell biologist. He proved that and Dr. Candace Pert, they proved that our emotions get stuck in our cells. So then I thought, okay, what cells am I going to look at? We have 100 trillion cells. Well, where are these cells stuck? So that led me into doing a lot more research, and just research like we would do in books back then, and of course now online. But the best research came from my extensive meditation practice daily, because what we had on planet Earth was not good enough. It was good, it was helping a lot of people, but the planet was rising in its frequency. So we needed tools to help the people for the future, to help the younger people. Today we call them star seeds. These are young people who are kind of lost. They've come from other planets. They don't know. Um,
Starseeds.
what's that?
Starseeds?
Star seeds. Yeah, they don't know what their mission is, and they struggle with their health, and they have all kinds of issues, relationship. They kind of cower, and yet these kids are brilliant. So the old systems, even some of the mind kinetic systems, the earlier methodologies are not working as well anymore. So that's why I have to keep on top of it and bring in methodologies that will really help these people. And I'm just thrilled with the results, because I'm learning too, Art. I mean, when you stream the stuff in from heaven, you have to try it. You have to massage it because it'll come in a certain form, and then you have to add some structure to it in order to make it work. For human structure, right? For the planet Earth structure. So that's what I did, and in total, with the foundational mind kinetic system, I developed over 80 main methodologies and then 40 plus what we call release methodologies that will take you into your superconscious. And now with the divine healing system, I'm developing even more.
Wow.
And it's huge. I mean, the whole and we need it, Art, because humans have different frequencies, so we need the methodologies in order to meet their needs. So we have to keep growing and streaming in. Yeah. So it's very exciting. I guess God's not done with me yet. I'm here for a while.
Yeah. Proven itself to be very, effective and useful.
Oh yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, I am. I think so. I mean, the we did a in one of our divine healing classes last night. We did a fairly new methodology, and it just blew everybody's minds. It was so simple but effective. It was mind blowing. I loved it. It was so great to see the response of the coaches. All of these coaches that are in the program are experienced coaches. They have training from us and from other organizations, and so they were ready to take on the big challenge of these higher frequency methodologies. So, every therapist should come and learn this because they will really dramatically help their clients. Every coach should come because the coaching systems that are available today are not all, but many of them are lower frequency, more left brain,
Yeah.
logical, analytical kind of stuff. But that's not where the power is.
I've interviewed a lot of coaches, and I think I will basically direct a lot of them to you. I think
Oh,
it's going to be very useful for them. Amazing.
yeah,
What amazing.
it is. It's wonderful. It's I'm you can see it. Sometimes I don't even have the words to describe the magic in it. And it shouldn't be called magic because it doesn't we don't want it to appear too loosey goosey or anything. It's just what it does for the human spirit is remarkable. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Let me know if you want me to tell you some stories because I'll tell you some stories.
Sure. Let's hear one story. I got a lot more questions, but let's pause for one story. Good
Okay.
bet.
Well, this one methodology is called Where is the Soul and What Does It Want? And as one of the students pointed out in the classroom, as humans, we rarely talk about the soul, do we? We rarely talk about our soul. So this methodology is where is the soul and what does it want? It's so simple, Art. And so one of our experienced coaches was coaching another one of our experienced coaches, and with the system, she was able to see where her soul was. And because sometimes the soul is lost, like for example, with one of my schizophrenia clients who is now basically freed from his disease. He was completely detached from his soul because of a traumatic event. So he was lost, so lost in this world. But once he got attached to his soul again, he was able to move forward. So that's at an extreme end. I mean, schizophrenia is one of the worst mental diseases on the planet. And then there are, other little traumas that can happen to us that may appear to be small, but they can cause our soul to take off on us. So sometimes people are living with their whole soul, some with their three quarters of their soul, half their soul, or no soul. So
Wow.
with this exercise, the client in this particular case yesterday, she got the vision through this simple method. She got the vision in her wisdom eye of where her soul was. And what she saw was a pyramid, like Egyptian pyramid, like one of those things. And then looking further, she saw a bright globe on the inside with rays. And so the whole decoding was about the fact that her soul was trapped inside this pyramid in Egypt, potentially. So, I mean, we could go on and on about what that was all about, but basically, we all know, or many of us know, that there's kind of like a secret to how the pyramids were built, right, Art? Like, how did they move these
Very
thousand
nice.
ton, you know, pieces
Yeah,
of
you
rock?
were the Egyptians.
No, it wasn't the Egyptians. I mean, it could have been extraterrestrials, right? I mean, that's a topic for another day. But so we all know that the main reason why the pyramids were built was to house spiritual practitioners so they could meditate safely. Because in those days, if you were a spiritual practitioner, they would kill you. They didn't want any of that fancy dancy stuff or evolved stuff in their world. So the spiritual practitioners had to hide. And they had these special caves within the pyramids where these spiritual practitioners would go, they would meet, and they would practice their meditation. That's pretty cool, right? And so we ascertained that way back when she lived in Egypt and she was in that pyramid practicing as a spiritual practitioner, when she passed, she left her soul there. Because remember, the name of the methodology is called Where is the Soul and What Does It Want? And so, what she wanted to do, this coach client said, well, I want my soul to be freed, clearly, and the soul would want to be freed. It doesn't want to be locked up in that pyramid space anymore. Because energy is energy, right? Whether it's locked up in the pyramids, thousands of years ago, or whether it's you and I talking today, energy is energy. And so the look on her face with our coach client after she was freed, she freed her soul and it came back into her, was quite astonishing. She could feel the pressure in her chest. And anyway, the story, I could go on forever, but this is the type of work that needs to be done today for these younger people, the star seeds. And some of them are not young. Some are in their 50s, 60s, 70s. A few of them are in their 80s, and they are trapped in their bodies, and they need to be supported by higher frequency methodologies. And that's what the divine healing system using Mind Kinetics offers to people.
I have dozens of similar and interesting stories and questions, but gonna be for another podcast, I think.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing. This is some pretty
It's cool, eh? Isn't that cool?
phenomenal. Yeah. All right. So you've claimed up to 1,000% change in behaviors and competencies. That's an
Yeah.
extraordinary number. Most coaching organizations don't put a number on outcomes at all. How do you measure that? And what makes you confident enough in the methodology to make that claim publicly?
Of all the podcasters, you're the first one to ask me that question, so thank you. It's a very important question. So we measure it on two levels, the conscious level and the subconscious level. So after a client's done, completed 10 Mind Kinetic sessions, then we will go back and review their learning and development plan. They told us at the beginning what their challenges were, their stressor challenges were, what their goals were, and so on. So through those 10 sessions, we worked on every single one, as many of those challenges and goals as we could. And it's usually the 11th session, because it's a freebie at the end where we want to measure we call it return on investment. And then it's just the first part of the exercise is logic. We will say to them, okay, madam, when we first started the Mind Kinetics coaching with you, you said that your communication, or you're telling us now that your communication with your boss was at a 2 out of 10, with 10 being very high. And so what would it be today? And she would say 8 or 9, or so then you calculate the difference between a 2 and a 9 or a 10. And many people will say, well, why don't you ask them what their number is at the beginning of the coaching contract? And I say, no. Well, you can if you want to, but it's not going to do any good, because the client is so blocked on their stuff, they can't even see where they were 10 sessions ago. So we ask it after the fact and say, now that you've been through 10 sessions, out of 10, where were you in session number 2 on the issue of communication with your whomever? And they'll say, I was at 2. I say, well, where are you now? And they'll say, I'm at 7, 8, 9, sometimes at 10. The lady that got 1,000 was a government executive art, okay, holding
Wow.
down, making 6 figures, doing very well. And she was addicted, heavy addictions to gambling, to alcohol and smoking, and also another one, very addicted to sexual abuse. Her partner would basically rape her every night.
Wow.
And she was letting all this happen. And so I'd have to go back and look. I think she had 30 sessions, because with all those addictions, you need a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
And that was with the foundational Mind Kinetics, which is still very powerful. If I was to work with her today, I don't. It would be amazing to see what would happen to her in her life now. But she rated the change on one of her addictions at 1,000%. She got 10. She was at a 0 or a 1 in the beginning, and then she got 10 at the end. She had gotten rid of her addiction to gambling. It was costing her like $400 or $500 a.
Jesus.
I know, it's the big stuff. So we measure, to answer your question, we measure first of all on a conscious level what they logically think their change is, with 10 being very high. And then we measure the subconscious. Now, when humans are working on, let's use the addiction story. And while we're working on her letting go of her addiction, underneath, her spiritual engine is working even harder. Because what are we working on? We are working on issues like self confidence. Why does she have to do all that gambling in the first place? Right? And there are different levels of self confidence. So we're working on the cells that are stuck in the solar plexus. We could also be working on cells that are in her emotional heart chakra, which is above the physical heart chakra. So heart chakra has the heart has two
Mhm.
chakras, and cells that could be stuck in her wisdom eye. I mean, we never know, until so we ask them questions like, how would you rate your inner peace 10 sessions ago to today? But it can't come from her conscious mind. It has to come from her subconscious mind. So we have a process that takes her into her subconscious so she can read the real reading. And that's where the mind gets flowing because we ask them all kinds of questions and then we can see on a subconscious level because art that's where it has to take place. The change has to take place at the subconscious level. Otherwise, as a coach, you're wasting your time. You're really wasting your time. And so there are, I think, 30 questions that we ask, and the real rating comes out of the subconscious mind. And then we compare their conscious ratings with their subconscious ratings, and the client agrees with it all. After we take them, they kind of go into a little hypnotic trance, but it's not really, but something like that. They're going inside into the cells and they can see the difference. And then we compare the conscious to the subconscious, and what a gift. They can see what a gift they've given themselves. And all the money they invested was really well worth it. So that was a long answer, but that's the way it works.
It was a long and satisfactory answer. Thank you for sharing. That's great.
You're welcome.
So you've developed over 80 award-winning coaching methodologies. Most coaches have only one or two signature frameworks. What drives you to keep developing new tools? What gap are you always looking to fill?
There were times, of course, because I'm learning along the route, right? I started in 1997 basically as a qualified coach. And there were situations where I felt I couldn't help the client. And I felt badly about that. I thought, well, why can't I? There has to be a solution. And I'm not trained as a psychologist or a therapist. This is mind, body, spirit, right? This is a completely different science. There are some similarities, but they have their world and we have our world. So we're quite separate. In fact, I have had therapist, counselor clients who've come to me. One lady couldn't get pregnant. So she, as a therapist, she came to me and I found out a year later that she had twins and she had a lot of difficulty getting pregnant. So, there's a place for everything on this planet. But basically, I was finding that there were cases when I felt I couldn't help my clients enough. And so I kept praying and meditating, and out they came, just like the original set of those 80 coaching methodologies. I think I streamed in like, I can't remember. I'd have to go back in my notes, but I've been doing this since 1997. So that's a long time. It's a lifetime of work, basically. But and then now with star seeds, they are with the Kali Yuga era, that old era, we're saying bye bye to it, and the golden era is here. And these new kids on the block need a lot of help. And as far as I could tell, there's nothing else on the planet that could really help them to the extent of this divine healing system. I mean, people could prove me wrong, but I haven't found anything. So that's my driver. I don't like to see humans suffer. So, and also I had to heal myself from my own traumas, my own childhood traumas, and I had to dig deep in order to find them. Where in my cells, where in my aura are these traumas living, and how can I pull them out, and then how can I heal them? Because it's one thing to discover them, but then you have to heal them, right? So there are many methodologies that will heal these serious issues. So it's great. I'm very excited about it, as you can tell.
So you're saying Kali Yuga is past kind of
No, we're in the transition.
okay.
That's why you're still seeing, so much darkness but you're also seeing lots of light popping up, right? And that's why you see a lot of confusion between spiritual practitioners and healers and coaches. They don't know where they are because it's this very sensitive transition time. And that's why coaches really need to meditate. They need to go in and really see what's going on so they don't get lost because the darkness wants to grab you and keep you down, keep you in that old analytical coaching world. No, that's not going to help the people of this planet in the future. The kids, these wonderful kids coming through, teenagers. Oh my gosh. One of my clients has a teenage girl. She's 14 and she's glued to her iPad, right? Just glued to the
Most of them are.
iPad. What's
Most of
that?
them are. Most of them are.
I know, but you can think of the energies that if she is spending hours and hours on her iPad every day, she's losing touch with who she really is inside. Somebody wanted me to come on their podcast as a guest, and they wanted me to talk about AI. And I said, no, I want to talk about SI, spiritual intelligence. Let's talk about that because AI is important and it has its role, but the SI is far greater. It has far more power than AI does. So, anyway, we need it for these kids. Art.
We need a couple more podcasts to go really deep on some things, and some things
Okay.
we'll discuss off podcast because, yeah,
Okay.
especially about the Kali Yuga because I'll have some questions about transition, but we'll
Okay.
keep it off the podcast. Let's switch gears here a little bit. So the coaching industry has exploded. The ICF estimates that there are now over 100,000 credentialed coaches globally. Does that growth strengthen what CLI does, or does it dilute the field in ways that concern you?
Both. I am concerned that these coaches get basic training that's left brain. They think they're working on more of the right brain, but from what I've witnessed, no. I mean, there's still coach training companies that will take you down to Mexico for a weekend, and at the end of it, they certify you. So, I mean, no, our program is very vigorous, and you are healing while you are learning because the coach needs to raise their vibration. And so I am concerned that more and more of these coaches are getting trapped into coaching systems that don't work very well right now and certainly won't serve folks in the new era. So that is has been a concern of mine for a while, and we have had meetings with the ICF, private meetings with the ICF to explain the whole science of mind kinetics, and they didn't get it. They are, but they are evolving. So that's the good news. You know, the
Okay.
they are evolving and want to. I'm guessing that they really want to switch it up and keep current with what's happening in. I made a presentation last week to the Association of Coach Training Organizations invited me to make a presentation, and it was on spiritual coaching. And I was thrilled that they asked me. I mean, that was a big deal, Art. So you can see how things are changing, right?
It's finally hitting the mainstream.
Yeah. Great.
It's actually mind blowing that most people are aware of a concept of a soul
Yeah.
and believe it's true that there is such a thing as a soul and energy and everything else, but the official science still will not acknowledge it in no way.
No. Well, that's right. And we have that discussion in our home all the time that I'm very grateful for science. When you look at medical science, for example, I mean, what they've been able to do with heart surgeries, and very grateful for that. However, spiritual science is an entirely different topic, and eventually it will be accepted. And my medical doctor is a wonderful human being, right? And she has gone out and studied acupuncture. She's gone out and studied roots and herbs and all that stuff, and as a separate practice, right, from what she's doing. But at the same time, the medical doctor I work with in India, those guys, those Ayurvedic doctors, they have to learn all the pharmacology. They learn both sides so they can be of the best benefit to their patients. So it's coming, Art. It's just a little slower than we would like to see that integration. But imagine being able to go to a doctor and they could do some tests beyond what they're currently doing, and they could easily find the root cause of their cancer.
Gonna a lot of companies are gonna lose profit. Or-
Or maybe not. Maybe they will start getting into roots and herbs. Maybe there will be a blending and different types of waters that are available. Maybe we need to teach people how to grow their own medicinal herbs. I mean, it's a wonderful world. There's a lot we can do, and I have faith that that's where our world is going.
okay, thank you for sharing. That's very, I guess, optimistic. I
Yes.
would like to do the same optimism as well. Where do you want CLI to be in the next 6 to 12 months? deeper into existing markets, new geographies, a new methodology, or new initiative?
What I want may not be what God needs me to do. So my preference is to do God's will and invite in where I can be of the most benefit. I mean, if this because of this transition time, Kali Yuga to new to golden era, there'll be a lot of blending of processes. And so we have to be very aware of who needs who and when and what. And so I'm open to receiving what my spiritual purpose is here on planet Earth. So that's what I'll do. Did I give you a good answer?
Well, you gave me your answer, right? There's no right or wrong answer. It's yours. If you had a magic wand and could fix just one thing inside CLI right now, and that's slowing the mission down, what would that one thing be?
To have more and more professionals wake up to lose their desire for power and fame and money, to lose that because that's ego world, and move into a very noble practice of a very heartfelt desire to help people. That's what my magic wand would want, so that more and more coaches, for example, and counselors and stay-at-home moms and dads, etc., would come and learn our science and use it to heal their own families. I think that amazing. Wouldn't that be amazing to start there? If at least one of the parents and maybe a teenager or something learned some of these tools and they practiced on themselves and they could help their own families. I mean, the divorce rate is still sitting, what, 40% in Canada, 50% in the US, you know? So people have to take responsibility and not rely on the government to do stuff. Our governments are really struggling. Look at the debt we have in our country. So, people have to take responsibility for themselves and learn new sciences like this so they can help themselves and then help others, help their family members, outside family members, help their neighbors, help their friends. That's
But I
how.
mean,
That's how we're going to change the world. Yeah.
for your specific business and your line of work, if you had a magic wand, what would you change about it if you had a magic wand?
I would like more coaches to come to learn our science and really get involved in it, study it, heal themselves, and then go out and help others. That's what I would want. More and more. And stop this learning of these archaic left brain methodologies, because they aren't working very well right now because these coaches can't prove an ROI at all, if ever. And then they need them for the future.
I love it. They're working really well because they cannot prove their ROI.
But it's true, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
true. I'm being blunt, but that's the way it is. Yeah.
This has been an extraordinary conversation. 80 plus methodologies, international television in 14 languages, a 200-person global organization, and a body of work that sits at the intersection of science and spirituality in a way that genuinely nobody else in the coaching industry is doing right now. This episode is going to reach people who are looking for something deeper than conventional leadership training. I'll send over the summary once we've compiled the full series.